I think it's hard to make large generalizations about kids, but you can say this, that kids that are coming in, okay, say it's an autistic kid who's kind of come in and has taken on, in some ways I see it as them taking on all of the patterns of the family that haven't been resolved, plus, all the cultural, diet and vaccines and all of these kind of insults. So they are representing in an autistic way. On some level, on their soul level, this was known, and they came in with so much courage.
So, hey, Angelica, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy mommy working life to talk with us today about enlightened moms and raising evolved kids. How are you today?
I'm good. It's a nice summer day, and Eva, who's 2.5, she's in her preschool thing. So.
Okay, good. So you have a few minutes of peace. Good. So, tell me a bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about your background. And before you do that, I just want to give our background, like how we met. We met 7 years ago when my children were treated by you for homeopathy, or with homeopathy, for some of the health conditions that they had early on. And that kind of evolved, and my children did really well, and that kind of evolved into more of a mentorship partner or relationship where you've mentored me through the years a lot. And then I took classes through your homeopathy school and learned a ton. And now I'm practicing, and now we're like colleagues. You're still my mentor too, and friend. And so go ahead and tell us like how you got to homeopathy and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of heart here. I love connecting with you, and there has been a lot of sweet history. So, it's been such a blessing to have met you. You're one of my first patients, actually, and we've been together. And every now and then we don't stay in touch, and then I hear about what you're doing, and I can feel that we're part of this larger collective movement of moms growing, or women growing in our awareness and connection to our true selves. And so it's so exciting always to connect with you.
Thank you.
So I went to naturopathic school and at Bastyr, and I loved homeopathy, and I focused on that, studied that. And when I graduated and moved to New York, I started working with Pierre Fontaine and autistic kids. And it was a real challenge, and my heart broke open in compassion, working with families and other moms. I wasn't a mom at the time, but listening to parents and their heartbreaking stories of watching their children regress was really moving for me. I would cry and just in appointments, and that was my door opening to healing and learning on the deepest levels through working with moms, other moms, about health, about kids, about intuition. And I was led through the heart, and I was led to you through our heart connection. It wasn't a rational process that we were going through. I mean, honestly, when we were working together, it was like kind of crazy, if you tried to sort out all of the information. I ended up, I've been working basically since 2010 with kids, moms, special needs kids, pandas. Now I'm working with a lot more adults with Lyme, and it's evolved a lot. My practice has evolved to becoming more and more intuitive, more and more in touch with the deepest levels of self, and helping people find the light and find the intuitive healer within themselves. So one of the things that always gets me like super excited is when I'm working with a mom and I can feel, I get this little message like she needs to go deep with this. This is all about her learning to become her own healer and a healer for her community. This is all about her coming in touch with her intuition. So, it can be very, very heartbreaking for mothers to watch their kids suffer, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And it causes suffering, and it causes our hearts. The first response is to protect ourselves and to close off our hearts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to get into the head and to research and to go online. And what I really try and do is bring moms back into the heart to heal their kids and themselves. Sometimes some boundaries are important between mom and child, but children mostly need a mom who can connect emotionally. This is very important for children to feel mom's love. So that's me in a nutshell. I had success treating autism in pandas, and then I felt I can't. There's not enough people doing this. And so I asked the universe, what can we do? How do we help? And all of a sudden, like, this group of moms whose kids got better all wanted to be taught homeopathy. And that included you and maybe like 15 other women. And that was a really awesome journey to take you guys on, and we're still on it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I still do feel like there's not enough people, because I personally, like, I have to keep my caseload to a certain level. Otherwise I get a little bit overwhelmed, because each case takes so much dedication and so much time, and so many of your own emotional resources when you're working with complex children, and so I can see over time me having to keep my caseload pretty low. And I feel like most of us who are doing this work feel the same way. So I think there's always going to be a demand for people to step in and take on more, take on the excess. And I don't even think we've seen the end of the demand for our services. I mean, the homeopathy in general, for our services, I think it's going to become more popular, more in demand, and there needs to be enough of us to take that on. So yeah, back to what you were saying about, you felt like you were really learning a lot about motherhood, and you saw the worst of the worst when it came to motherhood, right? And how did that prepare you, and how did it maybe make it more difficult becoming a mother yourself?
I really believe that treating this population really helped me become the type of mom I needed to become, which is going about it as naturally and as healthfully as possible. So my 2.5-year-old is quite, robust. I have a sensitive immune system and neurological system, and if I had gone down the path that I had been in my 20s, living in New York City, kind of average mainstream upbringing, diet, no thought about doing anything alternative, I think I would have definitely had a special needs child,
Mm-hmm.
dating the types of men I was dating at the time. Um, so I, you know, I went about it pretty naturally. I had a midwife who was my best friend. I gave birth at home. Um, she's never been to the doctor, in 2.5 years that I've had her. And yeah, hasn't gotten any kind of medicines ever, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So she's the only treatment she's had has been some cranial sacral treatments, because she's gotten a lot of falls because she's very rambunctious, and that's helped her with any injuries that she's had. But the way that I'm able to manage her is with all the tools that I've used for helping other moms, and it's tapping into intuition, and really asking, wait, what is this? So earlier this week, here's an example. She was coming down with something. It felt like a virus. And a virus can show up with lots of like repetitive talk. So Mommy, I want a cup of water. Mommy, I want a cup of water. Mommy, a cup of water. Mommy, I want a cup of water. Okay, I'll give you a cup of water. Mommy can have a cup of water, right?
Mm-hmm.
That plus she was really like, no. And then as soon as I'd be like, no, I don't want a cup of So this combination of repetitive plus this like saying no to everything, right? It's like, it went on for a couple days, and she's been this way in the past. Like, what is this? And it's, you know, and I get kind of caught up in having no idea what to do a lot of the time. I mean, it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Even after all the years that I've been doing this, it's still not easy. And it often can be my own problem where I'm having repetitive thoughts, and, you know, and so to get past that, to really see it. But
I think our kids completely reflect back to us what is going on in our own psyche. I see that so much. And it's hard to believe even sometimes, you know?
Yeah. And you can, you know, with homeopathy, and having done this, you see how it's yours or your partner's, or maybe even somebody around you, you know. But yeah, I can see a behavior in her, and then I can look at my husband, Ryan, and be like, you need to fix something. But anyways, I gave her a remedy, and she just totally calmed down. It was so great. And I was so grateful. All the times I've been so grateful for homeopathy still. It's the best tool for helping kids. And if you can get like a little homeopathy kit of 50 or 100 remedies and a little guidebook, and just, you know, your kid's got a cold and a runny nose or a cough that sounds a certain way, you can self-prescribe. And like, it's the ultimate grassroots medicine that moms can really get a hold of, and it's gentle. And we know the particulars in our children. The way that the mainstream medical culture is, it groups children in large groups. It's not looking at the unique traits, and, you know, it's giving the same kinds of dosages based on weight. You know, it's just, homeopathy is so specific and so gentle and beautiful. So,
Yeah, I agree with that. And I feel like lately I've kind of been feeling like if a family can get a kit and a book, like you said, and self-treat even some ear pain. I mean, maybe not necessarily a severe ear infection that is bleeding or whatever, but, you know, a little bit of ear pain that pops up, if families can like jump on top of that with a little remedy. I almost feel like it could prevent, not only are you preventing having to use antibiotics, which we know have long-term side effects, but I feel like you can almost prevent chronic, maybe more chronic mental and emotional conditions from forming as a result of those infections, you know? So I think it's so important, that and essential oils, and those are perfect things to have on hand. And a chiropractor can work through, you know, those kind of things.
to explain the idea that something chronic can develop from some acute infections. I don't think people fully understand how things move through the body. That if you have a child, for example, who has chronic ear infection and are given antibiotics, you know, and then maybe you think it's healing the ear infections, but from a homeopathic point of view, the body never gets to the place where it figures out how to heal the ear infection on its own. The immune system is always trying to learn. It's trying to develop this intelligence. So if you don't give the body opportunities to heal on its own, it's not developing that intelligence. So if you give antibiotics, it can kind of deepen the pattern of infection can deepen. And so say you've gotten a lot of antibiotics and you start to get coughs, and then you get steroids, and then you get asthma, and then asthma turns into, you know, inhalers, more steroids, and then the child develops ADD, you know, and because of steroids, and then because he has viruses or unresolved infections in the lungs that aren't healing, and then ADD turns into kind of too many, you know, a really sensitive nervous system, and the nervous system getting on edge. And then the kid starts going to school and is exposed to all sorts of infections and colds and viruses that no kids are resolving anymore because they're getting vaccinated for flu and all of this stuff, and they're eating junky diets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're exposed to all these infections, and the infections go even deeper because there isn't a strong immune system, and they start getting ticks, or they start having, rages. And a rage is an expression of inflammation, and it seems just like anger, but it's the body trying to push this thing out. Get this infection, get this disease, get this thing that is not me out of my body. And uh, poor kids. I was contacted yesterday or the day before by a school counselor on the East Coast, and she said that the last 2 years of being a school counselor have been like hell. Like the kids are looking so bad, like they're just like rocking, and they all have some form of brain inflammation or tics, and she can't just counsel people through it anymore. She knows something is seriously going wrong. And she's like, I discovered homeopathy by treating my kid for a cough, and then I realized homeopathy can treat these kids, and I want to be a homeopath. And what do I do? Thank God you woke up, and she's like, I don't know why other people aren't seeing what I'm seeing. I'm seeing these kids in the classroom, and they're not like how they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or even when we were growing up. It's getting bad.
It really is. And, I taught in my early 40s for a few years. I also taught in my late 20s. So I took like 10 years off when I had my kids, right? And during the time that I had my kids, the classroom completely changed. When I taught in my 20s, and they were similar schools, similar classes, the amount of kids with ADD and autism when I came back, in my early 40s was astounding. I mean, in some classes, it made up a quarter of the classroom. And there's no way for a teacher, and even with an aide, to give each of these kids the individual, um, you know, redirecting them back to their work and redirecting them back to the lesson. And it was overwhelming. I mean, my last year, and it wasn't something I was planning to do for a long time because I was studying with you, but my last year was so overwhelming. I was having panic attacks in the classroom. I had to really pull myself through the day because it was more than any teacher could possibly do. And it wasn't just me. It was all the teachers were getting completely overwhelmed. I don't know what it's going to take for that system to go bust. I don't know. It feels like it is going bust, and
I mean, this morning, my appointment with a mom, her kid was doing okay in the kindergarten, but come November this past year, so many kids were sick, and he was just like, I don't want to go to school. I just desperate to not go into this classroom. And he's a sensitive, empathic kid, an open and loving kid who wants to connect and just feels all of this. Like, you can have one kid in the class who's just full of like disease, and like this kid can't be around that. So she pulled him out and homeschooled him. And this is what I'm seeing left and right, is that like kids cannot function in the classroom and need to come home. And the system is bust. It's like nobody, in the mainstream media is going to say so. But this is why you're the alternative media, and we can say so.
yeah. And also, I really don't think parents realize how chaotic the school environment really is. It is, like I said, from the time I left and then came back, the amount of chaos, and it's not even what you're seeing and hearing. It's just the energy. It's chaos. And I would come home feeling so drained. I would just want to lay on the couch. And then I had to come home to my own kids and take care of them. Um, and to know that our kids are having to do that with their little underdeveloped, nervous systems, having to take in this chaos. I also substituted a little bit in an elementary school that's known to be like a good school, total chaos there, total chaos. And that's where my youngest, Bradley, is still there. And he hates school. And we've gotten Eli out, and I'm going to work on a plan for Bradley. I don't know what that's going to be yet. And I have to bring him to craniosacral therapy so that he can withstand the school environment, because he does better. He doesn't complain as much about going to school. So I think it makes him stronger to withstand the environment, but there's nothing healthy about it. And that brings me to my next question. How do you, and I know we've talked about this before, Do you feel like this kind of new generation of kids is almost more evolved past the chaos of society and
I
need to be treated completely differently?
I think it's hard to make large generalizations about kids, but you can say this, that kids that are coming in, okay, say it's an autistic kid who's kind of come in and has taken on, in some ways I see it as them taking on all of the patterns of the family that haven't been resolved, plus, all the cultural, diet and vaccines and all of these kind of insults. So they are representing in an autistic way. On some level, they're on their soul level. This was known, and they came in with so much courage. I was talking to another mom yesterday about this. It's like, holy cow, like this soul is so beautiful to come in and manage and try to deal with this. It's not like they're coming in with a nice blank slate and a couple of acute infections, acute reactions to chicken pox or the measles, that they have to get through, and then they can have, a generally healthy body. They're coming into really limited bodies. And so on that level, yes, amazing, beautiful souls who are really, to connect with them, you have to connect through your heart, and you have to connect through light and intuition. And they're going to say, I'm not going to try to fit to meet what you want me to fit. You need to come into my world and connect to me here. And the only way you can do that is through love.
Mm-hmm.
Love for yourself, love through healing yourself. And look, like I'm showing you what needs to be healed here. Like maybe my body isn't working. And it takes a while for people to actually start seeing how their child is a reflection of things that they need to work on,
Mm-hmm.
And that can be really challenging, and it's not a judgment, and it isn't something you should feel guilty about, because this is generations and generations
Of conditioning, right? Like we've all been pretty conditioned as kids. And then we pass those conditions on to our children, or those expectations onto our children. And just like you said, our kids are coming in and saying, nope, it's not going to work that way. And my oldest Eli is the perfect example. He classically, like a psychologist would look at him and say he has ADD, although I think in recent times that's starting to resolve. But really, when I look at if I look underneath what looks like ADD, what I see is a kid who says, geography is a waste of my time. I'm memorizing facts, and he's even been saying this to me. I'm memorizing facts that I'm never going to remember. As soon as I take this final exam, I'm not going to remember any of it. And he's right. I mean, do you remember any of your geography? It's good to learn like continents and where certain things are and basics, but the amount of facts that were being thrown his way, it overwhelmed him and it shut him down. But yeah, he could spend the entire afternoon after his little homeschool classes in the morning working on his business, because that's something that he's passionate about. And I think he knows it's on his path. I think he knows he's going to be like some sort of an entrepreneur. And it's like, this has purpose. And he dives into it and he throws himself into it, and it lights him up and it energizes him and he loves it. But as soon as I put like math or something in front of him, you can see all the life just draining out of his body. And, it looks like ADD, but I really don't think it is. I think it's like, when you're off your path, you do get drained, and that's your body saying, this is not my path.
Right.
And that leaves me as his mom a little bit torn, because, I'm a single working mom, and I need him to be out of the house for a few hours. I need him to be educated, and I can't devote my entire life to unschooling or alternative homeschooling. Maybe as he gets older a little bit, he can take some of that on himself. But and his dad, of course, is much more mainstream and wants him traditionally educated. So we have that where we try to meet in the middle. But I feel like how many kids really don't have ADD, and it's like this academic stuff is just not my thing. With that said, I think some kids probably have it in their path to be like an engineer, or they're supposed to be a doctor. So school is going to be a little bit more aligned with their purpose, so they're going to be okay in that setting. But I think there's more and more kids who that is just not aligned. And then of course there's the chaos in the environment that makes it so much harder for them. And And I think you're right. I think we're being forced to evolve as a society, you know, and there's a lot of pushback right now. There's a lot of resistance to that on many levels. And those of us who have these more challenging kids, or kids who are challenging the system, we're kind of trapped in the middle. Like, okay, how do we handle this? You know, because we still have to kind of fit into society, some of us, but we also like really need to see what our kids are saying to us, you know, and awakening. So
I think
yeah.
I love your description of him doing this business, because you're respecting his passion, you know, and you're going along with it, and you're seeing that that's him,
Mm-hmm.
supporting that. And, you know, something as small as that can keep his little spirit alive.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Respecting their individuality, respecting their own intuition, respecting that they have a wisdom that does not want to be squashed. You know,
Yeah.
they're bright and they're beautiful. I love children. It's you know, if we can keep our mothering, you know, love, just always like that fire burning for kids and fighting for them. I think that we always have a chance. There's always hope.
So what do you know, you've described Eva a little bit being more on, I don't know if the word challenging is the right way, but, you know, she's a little more, what would you say? Like she kind of wants her way when she wants her way. And
Absolutely. She's not, and sometimes it's funny when we're talking about kids that just go along with the program. And sometimes I'll treat a kid who goes along with the program and he's getting a lot of infections, and then we get him stronger, and then he fights back, or he starts
yes.
teacher, right?
Yep.
And they get into the program, and there's actually like, we have to have some respect for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's an inner strength. So are we cultivating, how do we cultivate and respect a child's inner strength while still being the boss, while still being able to say no to them? You know, and this is
And how do you balance that with Eva? Because I have that with Eli too. I'm like, I don't know when. There has to be a time sometimes when you put your foot down and you say, that's not happening. I'm sorry, you're going to go do it my way. Like, how do you do that?
I've done both, where I've given in too much to her, and then I see when I give in too much to her, she starts to whine and complain, and like it makes things worse. And I, you know, I think for me it's important to understand that a child's brain is so open. Like our brain isn't about let's fit more information in. Really, we're receivers for receiving everything. We can experience and feel like the thoughts, the feelings, everything. And what the brain is doing is limiting. And so you bring a kid into the store and they're like, Mommy, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. And like, oh man, like, do I appease her with something? But saying no gives her a greater sense of security. There's more freedom in structure. There's more freedom within saying no. And then she can be like, oh, okay, you know, and relax a little bit, and her brain can relax a little bit. And so, you know, I'm a very much a yes kind of person, and appeasing and wanting to love and give in, you know, and maybe even spoil. But I've seen how if I do that too much, I just get a little, like the obvious signs of a spoiled brat who's like, you know, having a little tantrum if she doesn't get her way. So yeah, it's, you know, just all the basics of, you know, not giving in when they're behaving badly. And I did attachment parenting to the point where she's still breastfeeding, and this is something, it's a problem that I have. I feel like I did too much attachment parenting, where sometimes it's just mommy, 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 you know, and there really needs to be balance with saying no and setting boundaries. And but yeah, I love to engage her too. Like she's there's a part of her that's very knowing, and you know, she likes to occasionally want to take a remedy herself, and I'll let her look at all the cell salts, and because I'm not stressed out about the potency of a cell salt, I let her pick out her cell salts. And most of the time, sometimes she'll pick one that I'm like, that just seems really strange, and I'll put it away. But put her hand, and she'll do this, and then she'll pick one. And she's picked remedies out for me before from, our remedies, and it's spot on. I'm like, wow, how'd you do that? The other day, and so she's small. She's like 10th or 15th percentile. And so, I could stress out about that and stuff. But every time that I've stressed out about it, something in the universe tells me like, no, this isn't, don't worry about it. Just like trust that this is how she's supposed to be. She's really lightweight and really muscular, but doesn't have like a ton of chub. And the first time that I got really stressed out about it and was like worried about it, we went to the park, and there was another little kid her age or her size, like they looked identical. She looks like a little humanoid who's like heavy, because she's just like adult like build but in miniature. And there's this little girl and they're playing, and I asked the mom, I'm like, oh, how old is she? Oh, she's a year and a half. I'm like, oh, so is Eva. And they're born on the same exact day.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, where are you from? Sedona. And we conceived in the same place
Oh my
too.
gosh.
And so I was like, oh, interesting. We conceived in the same place at the same time. Baby's born same day. They look exactly the same. I'm like, maybe this is just meant to be. Maybe something in the heavens aligned and this is what came out. And then maybe like a month ago, I was like stressed about Eva not like getting bigger. And I'm like, Eva, you have to get bigger. And she said, no, I'm supposed to be tiny. And I said, oh, you're supposed to be tiny? Did God tell you that? And she said, yes. And then I said, wow, I wonder why God told you that. And she said, well, it's because everything is big and everything is tiny.
So there's some big things and some little things, and I'm just one of the little things?
Or no, just the idea that everything is big and everything is tiny. So like, yes, this is a tiny, but compared to an ant, this is big. So I'm like, awesome.
That's funny.
I'm not worried anymore. You're fine.
And that brings to mind, like, kids, they go through developmental stages too, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And definitely in the toddler years, and then again in the puberty years for sure. There's this, like, I think it's funny because now that I'm a mom of a teenage child, I'm seeing kind of a similarity between toddler years and teenage years, and the strive for independence. Like, I need more independence, and they make it well known, and you start to realize, oh, I'm really losing control here, and that's scary. With toddlers, it's more like, oh, it's scary because she wants to go off on her own and she could get hurt. And with teenagers, it's more, they want to make their own decisions, and you have to give and take with the decisions. But anyway, starting with the toddlers, they go through different stages. Sometimes kids go through stages of like separation anxiety. What do you make of that? And how have you been able to like ride out some of those stages that Eva has gone through?
Yeah. And even with homeopathy, it can still like be a challenge. She had separation anxiety with me, and I think it's I'm not like necessarily reading a bunch of parenting books or anything, and but I think it's just the encouragement that I know, for example, with separation anxiety, is some kids have separation anxiety because they're feeling insecure in themselves and insecure in their bodies, and their bodies don't feel good. And mommy's safe. Mommy is where I feel comfortable. Mommy represents safety and comfort and security. So that's understandable. And you want to be that. You want to be that source of love and support to them. But I also know that she's going to be happier once she has some independence from me. And so I don't want to be a hover mom, who's always there and hovering. And the kid is not, and I've seen this sometimes with even kids on the spectrum, is that moms kind of overcompensate by being super available for their kids to wipe their butts and everything, and in the belief that they can't do it. And as they heal, it starts to be a limiting belief system that the child really needs to be challenged to do things on their own. And once they do, they're so much happier. Like there's such a joy in that sense of independence within themselves. So I think that we ourselves too, as adults, are models for how much we're codependent or need our own independence, and the child copies that. So if you,
Yeah, that's true. And it can go both ways. Like we can become a little bit codependent on our children, you know, and as a single mom, I can see actually my kids have been out of town for a week with their dad. And I've had a chance to reflect a little bit on that and thinking, you know, do I lean on my kids a little bit too much for like emotional support? Maybe not Bradley, but Eli. And, you know, as a teenager, that's a lot of responsibility. And I've had to reflect on, because he's actually going through a bit of a separation anxiety stage with me, which I find interesting because he did this as a toddler too, but maybe this is a stage that they go through as teenagers. Maybe they feel like they need to cling before they spread their wings and fly. But, and I've thought, I wonder if I'm doing it the other way too. Like if I'm not keeping that boundary of parent child as much as I should, but you have to have balance with that. You can't just be all like dictatorial all the time, you know?
right.
So
Yeah, it absolutely goes both ways, and I think it's really important to explore that. How much are you codependent on your partner, you know, and how does that play out in your kids being codependent on you? How much do you seek independence as an individual, and do your kids seek that? How rebellious were you? You know, Ryan was super rebellious as a kid, so Eva has that streak. Um, and then also understanding that that's a strength too. Like when she has strong willpower, she's rebellious. Like I love that because she's like a girl. I want her to like have, you know, fight for her way in this world.
mhm.
I think a really good tool maybe is to like visualize yourself with your kid and holding them and being together with them. And then that moment of separation and feeling into your hearts, and both the heart of the child and the heart of the kid, and just feeling like it, is there this pull, is there this grasping, and how do you energetically say it's okay, I can let go, I don't need this grasping, and counsel or coach yourself through that moment of separation through a guided visualization. And then when it comes up in those moments, it'll be a lot easier. um, so I'm really big on kind of doing guided visualizations for reprogramming the brain.
I guess to start to kind of close out, what do you, you know, moms who are listening are at all stages. There might even be some pregnant moms, brand new moms, moms with toddlers, moms with teenagers, moms with grown kids, who knows? I know at least my mom will be watching, and she has 3 grown kids. So, but for the newer moms or the pregnant moms, what would be your best advice to prepare? And the reason I ask this is because, you know, I was given advice before I had Eli, and it was to read a certain book, and I can't remember what the book is, and maybe that's good because I don't need to throw like an author in front of the bus. But it was basically about like putting your child right out of the womb on this strict schedule of sleeping, nursing, or feeding on a strict schedule, and letting them cry it out. And it wasn't even Dr. Ferber's method of going in every 20 minutes and then weaning off of that. It was just put them in the crib, walk out, don't go back, no matter how long they cry. And I totally bought into that because I had a friend who was using that, and her child was so sweet and compliant and, you know, like the perfect kid. Of course, that's what I thought was the perfect kid at the time. Now I believe that I think a compliant little kid who never does anything wrong, probably there's a little bit of something that could be developed there. But, you know, unfortunately, I didn't have the whole attachment parenting viewpoint. I didn't buy into that. I felt like it would spoil the child. Looking back at both of my kids, you know, Bradley came out of the womb pretty sick, my younger one, and I didn't do that whole crying it out, putting him on a schedule. I completely attachment parented him out of necessity. And looking, you know, fast forward, 10 years now, 13 years, Eli, the one I cried out, is the more needy one at bedtime, believe it or not, at 13. The other one, he'll go right to sleep. He goes to sleep early and easily and happily. And I didn't spoil him one bit. I mean, it makes no sense. In my house, I got to see that it did the opposite, you know? So
Well, that's
what would be your suggestion? I mean, I don't know if like reading a ton of parenting books is a great idea, but if you have any books you suggest, I think reading too many parenting books can really get you too much into your head, right? Instead of like leading with your intuition.
Yeah, there's one parenting book I read, which was parenting techniques from like all around the world. Like each chapter was, I can't remember what it's called, was like
Oh, that's cool.
Sweden, one was on Japan, one was on France, you know, and it was nice just to kind of give like a perspective of, you know, like in Denmark, they actually pile tons of blankets on top of the kids, you
Oh,
know, and
wow.
this like mountain of blankets that the kid like can sleep under. And it's like totally opposite here. We're like so afraid that the kid's gonna like, yeah. Uh, you know, so if it's a suggestion to new mom or pregnant moms, you know, it's such a complete shift in your sense of being, and you're going to pour all of yourself into this child coming through, and that's the way that it should be. And if you have the opportunity to really give as much love as possible, you know, to that child. It's evolving you as well. It's changing, it's doing an alchemy to your heart and to your emotions and to your body. I know a lot of moms want to kind of continue with their career and have their baby and put them in daycare and go back, and that's great, but there is an opportunity for such a deep evolution of self into coming into the heart of being a mom. That being said, you can give so much of yourself that you lose your center, you forget who you are, and you become really caught up in like the grind, and to remember those pieces of who you are before you were a mom. So there is a beautiful giving up of self, kind of like losing a bit of your ego, and that's beautiful. But then you also kind of have to get centered, and remember what it is that you loved, and to focus on yourself. If you fall apart, nobody's better off. Self-martyrdom is not really a great thing these days. I think we need moms who are empowered goddesses who take care of themselves and their kids in equal share. So I would say that having an ability to really trust your intuition, knowing that family is going to tell you things, your husband or your partner is going to tell you things, school, medical institutions, doctors, nurses, they're going to tell you things, but you know best. Your baby is your body. That's your body. That's your baby. You feel it out, you know, and go into your gut. Take a deep breath in and out. Center into your belly, center into your heart, and follow your intuition with the choices that you do make. And that's my main advice. I've had a lot of moms come to me saying, I wish I had followed my gut. You know,
Yeah.
the power, you know, motherhood is not valued as an institution in this culture, but it is the most important institution for building a strong and healthy society. And I think we're gonna see, you know, we're seeing the results of us not valuing it. And so value it, you know, value the love that you have to give. I put even a little like Montessori toddler school, and there's 3 women in there who just love their jobs, you know, and they get paid probably really hardly anything, but they're such good, they're like moms, and they're in there and they're with the kids. And I'm like, thank you for doing the work of a mother's heart, you know, for these kids. It makes all the difference, and it's a beautiful thing. So to all the moms who are listening, pouring all of your heart into your kids, thank you. You know, it's healing, not just yourself, not just healing. It is, that love is what helps them grow. It's the vital essence. It's that source energy that started them in life. So thank you for putting that out there. It's healing the world.
It's so true. I, you know, as my kids are getting older, I'm starting to realize more and more, I hope I don't start crying, but this is the most important work I've ever done with my kids, you know, just giving them the space to go through some of the things they've had to go through and come out of it and go back into it and come out of it and explore their own psyches and explore the world and figure out where they fit in the world. And to be in this position, I'm finding to be more and more of a gift as I see my kids evolve, as I see, they go through hardships, but they come out stronger. And to be part of that and to support that is huge. Like no CEO in the country, who looks powerful and he's making millions of dollars like that, he would never be able to accomplish what a mom can accomplish in this world, because these kids are going to grow up and change the world, especially this generation of kids. And I
And
also wanted to say, go ahead.
just really quickly, what you touched on when you almost cried was that well of unconditional love, that no matter what, you would give everything. And this is the gift of being a mom. This is our opportunity. Even when kid is, not doing well, to love them unconditionally and to let that love move you forward. It can be tough. There's probably moms who are listening who are just like at their wits end and want out.
Yeah. And we all go there sometimes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but really coming to a place where you can kind of look at yourself and feel into yourself and love yourself too, because it's unconditional love for the self as well.
It is. And, it's funny because I think when I first had my kids, I thought that love was doing and making everything perfect and, making sure the birthday party was just right and all those things. And it's, oh my gosh, unconditional love is so not that. Because if, it's great if you want to throw a beautiful birthday party and a memory for your child, but if it's taking away from your ability to be present and just, your kids just want your undivided attention, and you have to be present to give that. And you
Yeah.
have to put all the doing and the to-do lists and everything aside. And, you have to not worry about the dishes sometimes. And that's hard because we're kind of expected to be these perfect people, perfect woman, perfect wife, perfect mom. And what's perfect to society is probably far from perfect to our children. They just want that connection.
Yeah.
They want to be seen and heard.
I had a mom recently, like, imagine what it's like to be her child. And her child, she said, I feel like his head is spinning because he's just seeing his parents run around like crazy, like super busy. And he's just like spinning. And she made one fix in her family's life that's made all the difference. And they just have like 10, 15 minutes of cuddle time in the morning before they get up out of bed. It's just like cuddle, relax, and then start the day. And
That can be so huge.
happier. Yeah, it's easy.
It is. Yeah. I've seen that with Bradley sometimes getting anxious about going to school. And I'm like, okay, we're going to take it slow this morning. I'm just going to lay in the bed with him and hold him and talk about random things that have nothing to do with school. And it really does help ease. They just had a little bit of that love is so powerful to just soothe whatever's going on in their mind at this time and give them the empowerment that, okay, I can make it through this day, So that's great. Yeah. I don't think it always has to be like you have to quit your job and stay home. I think sometimes it can just be a slower pace. Just before we talk about your day, let's just stand in the kitchen and hug each other and, be silly and cuddle and tickle each other or whatever, just be present and have that relationship because honestly, like it goes so fast. It's unbelievable to me that Eli's going to be in 8th grade. Like it's 5 years left before he possibly leaves. He's the type that will probably take off and leave when he's 18 and how fast these years are going to go. And so the further you get into motherhood, the more you realize, whoa, this time is so precious. And I can make money, when he's gone. But right now I have to create memories and I have to let him know that I'm here and I'm present and that comes first, So that's a tough balance for people sometimes because we do have to pay the bills, right? But we have to find that balance somehow. So do you want to talk about anything else you have going on professionally now? Like I know you're kind of continuing some of your classes. Like what's kind of the next chapter for you?
Well, yeah, I'm for this same group that I taught. I'm just doing a group of classes this summer, kind of more in the intuitive part of intuitive homeopathy. So my website's intuitivehomeopathy.com, and we bought some land here. We're building a little meditation tea house, and we're gonna, the kind of community is coming together. So we're not quite sure. It's very organically evolving. We have somebody building on this piece of land too, like a little bunkhouse, and so we'll see. It's exciting. It's a busy time, and still have my practice going. I really try to ask the universe to just, keep the flow of people who are coming in and asking for support for me at a nice steady rhythm that fits me, and just to trust that, the universe is my secretary and I just go along with the flow. Yeah, I kind of only think ahead like 1 to 2 months, and that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same place. I'm always trying to, okay, like what's next? What's next? Because like I said, I do need to keep my caseload down to there's like a certain amount of people I can see per month before I start to feel like, oh, I'm losing my mind. And I don't have, then I don't have the focus for my own kids. So I'm trying to figure out, how should I shift my business? What other things can I do? And that answer's not coming yet, completely. I mean, I'm enjoying setting up this podcast, and who knows what that will lead to, but same thing. Like, I think the more you try to figure out the next step, the more you're banging your head against the wall, because it might not be right time for that next step, and it'll just kind of grow organically, I think,
Organically, like our little podcast here will develop into a little series of classes for homeopathy, who knows? It's just, we try this kind of doing culture is exhausting to moms. And if we can step back, there's a book called How to Let Go and Let God Do the Heavy Lifting by Lola Jones. And it's really about letting grace come in, the idea of the universe stepping in, or grace, or the divine, or whatever word you want. So creating an openness in your life, and a surrender. Every time you feel stressed, what's next? Just guide me. Grace, come in. Grace, come and guide me. Show me the way. Guide my feet. Let me, I find meditation really important for me. And so I've started doing Kriya Yoga every morning. I do like half an hour of some Kundalini Yoga. And it's made a really nice difference for me too. So there are really tools for doing less. You can do more, like sitting in meditation for 20 minutes will allow you to do 6 hours of being in the flow of a very productive day. Right?
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
You don't do that meditation, you could be like really scattered and get nothing done.
I also have found that if I meditate before bed, which I don't nearly do as much as I should, I get less sleep. Like in other words, I can sleep less and feel even more rested. Like meditation almost sets me up for like a deep sleep. So even if I only have 4 hours ahead of me, it's going to be a good 4 hours, and I'm going to wake up like I had 8, So I think it makes everything more productive.
And I have my little like sacred spot. There's like a little table behind me, has like some angels on it, and I have a little quiet place for yourself to sit.
What's up with the books there stacked up? I went to ask you that earlier. They're just a stack of books, huh?
Yes, actually, it's a really cool bookshelf.
Oh, is it a bookshelf?
It's a vertical bookshelf. Yeah, or else I think that would all come tumbling down.
Oh, those are not actually books?
They're books.
Oh, I see. There's something holding them up. Okay. Oh, how funny. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time again. I know that you're super busy. You probably have a day of clients ahead of you, and you have to go get Eva at some point. But thank you so much for your time.
It's all good. I do my work in like early in the morning, so then I have like the day